Evening. Today's date is October 18th, 2025. This video, I want to see if I can give a little bit of insight into how to navigate through your past and learn how to become sort of resilient to some of the past experiences where you've had to let go of something or you were forced to let go of something. And what I've noticed is that these instances where people are forced to sacrifice or let go of something, or is a situation where they had no choice in the matter, it can be a little bit traumatic at times. Maybe not on a level as, somebody going to war, but I would definitely not compare it to that. But I'm talking about instances where maybe you have a tight knit group of friends, or maybe you've had a girlfriend, or you've had someone who was very close to you in your life, and you were forced to essentially lose contact with them, and you have no control over you essentially have no control how you lose contact with people. I mean, a good example, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of that, this topic come up where, people who go to high school, they make cool friends or they make the best of friends there, and then they graduate and they never see each other again. And then maybe they try again in university, but then once they leave higher education, then they lose all the friends and acquaintances they made along the way as well. And you can make the argument that, if somebody who's losing their friends every time they leave somewhere, maybe they weren't good friends to begin with. But I think there's some leeway with that where there's people who do make good friends. It's just some things just end up falling apart. Same with a relationship. Some things just end up falling apart and you feel like you have no control over that. And then as you get older, you start reminiscing about, or you start to remember those times where you had no control over the situation and you were kind of forced to move on. And we always ask ourselves why some people who we hold very dear are suddenly gone from our lives. And it's hard to cope with. And I see what happens with a lot of people is that they essentially, these memories, these sort of traumatic memories that they have of losing someone, start to get control over them. I've had that happen too with myself. I've had instances where I've lost some good friends of mine through no fault of my own. It was just a situation where the friendship just fizzled out. And I can't find some of them I understood because some of them I left on my own terms. And those you do know what it was. Those you know for a fact. But some, it's kind of gray area. Like you don't know what exactly happened, or maybe it was several factors that led to that friendship or good relationship dissolving. It was just maybe something bad happened between you guys and there was nothing to reconcile it, or maybe they realized what they wanted in this relationship wasn't actually what they wanted and they wanted something else entirely. And so you can't control somebody who wants something completely different from what they originally expected. And sometimes, I mean, you can think this stuff, but at the end of the day, you just don't really know what exactly, how that all worked together to dissolve the relationship. And we the thing I would say about this is that sometimes there's just no reason to this, but you don't have to let that stop you from moving on and developing new relationships, you know? The way I see it is this, and some people might argue that, this is the what I'm saying doesn't make sense or it seems kind of cruel, but it's really the only way you can move on. You have to perceive it in ways like, okay, this relationship I had with somebody, it's gone now. And there's nothing I can do to put that back together again. But what that also means is that I'm free to start building relationships with other people who might end up being important to my life down the road and who ultimately might help me heal along the way. And this is a problem I used to have with myself, but not so much anymore. I still get hiccups. I mean, nobody's perfect, but I've learned how to become more resilient the to the breakdown of relationships. Because I mean, if you look at humanity, it had to kind of be like this. Like if you're looking at prehistoric times, sometimes you might be with a tight knit tribe or a group or whatever, and then something traumatic happens. Maybe somebody gets eaten, or somebody dies through starvation or through famine, or you just couldn't, and there is you had no control over that. Maybe you maybe like in ancient times, you had a big famine and people just died, and that still goes on today, surprisingly, unfortunately. People die because they don't have enough food or or whatever sort of event, and you can't things just end up things are just beyond your control when these relationships just stop, you know and you have to develop some resilience to this, otherwise you just won't survive. I think, like, taking away like physical traumatic events, just thinking about like purely psychological. If you take a look at like crazy artists, like let's take Van Gogh for example. He he was a great artist, no doubt, but he just you take a look at his history, he just had such a hard time trying to move on from relationships. I mean, the guy literally cut his ear off for a girl he was obsessed over. I mean, that's how hard it was for him to get over things. And you see, it wasn't until the end of his life when he started learning how to let go and just do what he wanted to do, regardless of who comes or who goes. That's when he actually started making some success for himself. And coincidentally, that's also when he kind of stopped the abstinence. But I mean, that being off the abstinence probably made his head a little bit more clear and thinking more clearly about things and seeing how things really work in reality. And so the thing I'm saying here is just don't let past breakups define who you're going to move on, define how you're going to move on. You as a human being can break away from that and learn how to build other relationships that essentially, I don't want to say take the place of it, but it helps you get step by step every day, you know? And I think it's important for people to build other relationships when things just fall apart, because when you build new relationships, you get new perspectives on things. And sometimes those new perspectives help you better understand how you handled your past. And then it also helps you better move on from it, because then with these new people you're talking with and sharing your experiences with, you get to better understand like what it sometimes you get a better understanding of how your last relationships went wrong. And that's the weird thing about this. It's like moving forward helps you better understand your past and move on from it. And this is where people get stuck. Like sometimes the breakup is just so traumatic that they think there's no way to move forward from it. They think there's no way to heal from it and continue growing as a human being, you know. But the best I can say is just from my own personal experience of having good friendships fall apart, but building new ones in the meantime, and which helped me learn better about my past. And same can be for bad relationships. You know, sometimes you have a bad relationship and you don't know what made it bad and how that all went to shit pretty much. But then you get to see other relationships going on. And you might end up building some other bad relationships, but then you look at your past and you see like, oh, I've seen this happen before already. And so the past bad relationships can help you navigate the future as well. So it's really interesting how the future and the past help work together to help you navigate through each of them. It's pretty interesting, but again, that comes just from living life and experiencing it, and you have to. Unfortunately, you just have to take that risk. That's all I'll say about this. I think I got my point across, and hopefully this gives you all better insight into how to navigate through things going forward and looking back. That's all. Have a good evening.